Hello and welcome back to Stop Talking Claw. I'm Claw, and today we're going to talk about why true crime now. I'm a fan of true crime. I listen to a podcast, watch the YouTube videos. I've seen The Staircase, Tiger King, Making a Murder. One of those podcasts I mentioned is Last Podcast on the Left, and they're often asked, why true crime now? I don't know these guys, so they may not be asked it that often, but I'm using context clues. Namely, that in an exaggerated interview voice, they mock, why true crime now? So I want to take a look to see if is true crime now, danger in true crime now, and truly why true crime now. I always have a hypothesis when I go to do these videos. I don't usually make it known, but I'm searching for something. A preconceived notion of what I'm going to find and show moral and intellectual superiority on. But I have been wrong, mostly in my Bible beliefs. I spent several years in a Christian church and thought I knew what I was going to find. Oh, how wrong I was. Turns out the Bible isn't that strict, especially not the New Testament. I mean, more strict than atheism or agnosticism, but less strict than my southern preachers made it out to be. Turns out that if you just leech on to a few Bible passages, you can really steer the ship in any way you want it to go. And I think that's what's going on with true crime. If I'm being honest, it does have a bad look. Several of the true crime shows that I watch take a comedic spin on tragedy, and thus are vilified for it. But is that fair? I don't think so. The great bard Shakespeare seemed to think that tragedy and comedy were two sides of the same coin. So here's my hypothesis. Is true crime now? No. I'm fairly certain about this one. The first thing that comes to mind is the pulp novels of the cowboy outlaws, and that was in the 1800s. I don't know if public execution really counts as true crime, or it's from a weird, macabre place of justice. Danger in true crime? This one I'm not sure about. Is there inherent physical or mental danger from ingesting dark material? Finally, we cover why true crime now. This is another one I'm interested to learn about because I like true crime, and I'm not really certain why. So, is true crime now? According to JSTOR's blog, true crime literature started in the 1550s in Britain with pamphlets explaining the capital crimes of the day. These tellings of gruesome details are mostly enjoyed by the upper and artistic classes of old-timey Brits. Oddly enough, there would be ballads sung lamenting the tragedies, but not for the victim, but for the criminal. This may point to the turning point where those who were enjoying the sensationalized crimes identified more with the perpetrators, which is something we see today. Names like Charles Manson, Ted Bundy, and John Wayne Gacy are far more common than their respective victims. Even the musical Chicago makes sympathetic heroines from cold-blooded murderers. The obsession went on and crossed the pond and was written about through the 19th century. Of my favorite titles ever is Thomas de Quincey's In the Blackwoods magazine. It is called On Murder, considered as one of the fine arts. The mid-1800s is where I think we take a turn. Instead of true crime, we started getting interested in fictionalized crime. Famous authors like Edgar Allan Poe wrote macabre stories about death and revenge. This led authors to counteracting that with detective novels like Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's Sherlock Holmes. This isn't true crime, but a weird obsession with criminals nonetheless. Then, in 1892, came what I'm calling the turning point. The Mac Daddy, or rather Mac Mama, of true crime in America, Lizzie Borden. Everything was perfectly aligned for this case to be everywhere. A young girl, a tremendously bloody crime scene, a mystery all now mixed with photographs and widespread daily newspapers. I think the attraction is this discussion surrounding crimes of this magnitude. When every single day we're reminded of the case, we allow ourselves to play detective a little bit. We talk about it with friends. It's a disaster-ridden town with destroyed buildings or a bad car wreck. We're fascinated by the uncommonness of it. And if you see someone you know, and they say that they're not in a true crime, but watch the O.J. Simpson, Casey Anthony, Madeline McCann, Gabby Petito cases unfold, they're into true crime. Danger in true crime? With us obsessing over true crime for centuries, it does beg the question if there's any inherent harm in the genre. New York Times interviewed writer Emma Berquest, who thinks that women particularly are left inappropriately paranoid, though we're in a decades-long decline of crime. Berquest says the level of hyper-awareness just doesn't seem to be healthy. The New York Times article doesn't list any credentials of the proposed unhealthiness, but ClevelandClinic.com lists possible effects as being scared all the time, afraid of your home, being wary of others, and persistent anxiety. The New York Times article does point out that when people get too obsessed in a case, they may start to inject themselves into the investigation as amateur sleuths. While this may be true in a very small number of cases, I would argue the Internet Collective targets much smaller infractions more frequently and harshly. Most often, keyboard detectives are harmless, and occasionally they can track down the perps, like in the Luca Magnotta Don't Fuck With Cats case. The final point of the article points out that true crime may represent an imbalance in ethnicity of victims. This leads people to believing that most commonly reported victims are most important to solving the case. And in simple terms, it's white girls show up on the news, so no one's looking for the black guys. All in all, I didn't see anything natively dangerous with true crime, but as always, take a look for yourself and at yourself. Why true crime now? So, why true crime now? I would argue that true crime has been an interest since there's been crimes being punished. It feels more omnipresent today because we have so many delivery channels. We no longer have to just read in cold blood. There are documentaries, TV shows, podcasts, YouTubes, and of course, the internet. I would propose that podcasts have done more for renewing the genre than anything else. Whereas most channels have a rigid form they must fit in, a 48-hour TV show, for example, a podcast can be as long or as short as it wants to be. It can dive deeper into topics that have been previously glossed over. The last podcast on the left, in particular, is very good, an hour and a half, multi-part topics that cover the entire lifespan of a killer. Oftentimes, not getting to any actual murders until the second or third episode. They spend a long time with the childhood of a killer and really try to analyze the causality. And why does that unprecedented discovery in an evil person resonate so much with the population? Well, Mental Floss has a list of 12 reasons why. Firstly, it's normal and healthy, according to former chief psychologist of the San Diego Police Department, Dr. Michael Mantell. Then there's our fascination with evil. How many times in the media have we seen the Nazis being the bad guys? And there's the news cycle, which makes it accessible, and the inquisitiveness of bad things happening. The train wreck theory, where you can't look away from a train wreck. It can make us feel prepared, or that we are learning evasion techniques. We like it because we aren't the victim or the perpetrator, leaving us with a sense of joy that it didn't happen to us and a moral superiority that we didn't do it to someone else. Everyone wants to have a theory and talk about these theories. We like to be scared in controlled environments, like in a haunted house. Fear is an emotion that isn't normally felt, but sometimes it's fun to feel. And finally, it's compelling. It's good storytelling that actually happened, and that most of the time it ends with the baddies getting their comeuppance. So, why true crime now? Well, that's a nothing question. True crime has always been one way or the other. All you have to do is ask if someone about Carol Baskins or Jack the Ripper to see the most hardened denier that they have their big toe in the ocean of true crime.